What's good, y'all? BeatGenerals.com back with a brand new tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we're going to be starting a brand new series kind of on a couple of newer artists. I told you guys I'm going to be doing series a lot more, so this one is going to feature Lil Uzi Vert, Made in Tokyo. And then for the third artist, I'm kind of debating on a couple of people. I've heard people say stuff like Lil Yachty. I feel like that might be a little bit too simple. So if you have an idea for what the third tutorial in this series should be, please leave it on the forum. Let me know. I'm happy to do whatever you guys want to see, so just let me know what you guys think would fit in here. If it is Lil Yachty, let's go ahead and do it, but definitely let me know. So this first tutorial is going to feature Lil Uzi Vert. This tutorial is more on his kind of more a little bit happy type style. A cool thing that he really kind of does well in his music is that he'll take kind of almost like a trap style track, but then it breaks off into a lot more happier kind of sounding sections where it almost sounds like a major key or something like that, and then you'll still have that kind of trap type feel on the verses. So I try to kind of do that in this section. I kind of did my own thing as far as what I thought I could hear him on. I try to kind of incorporate a little bits and pieces of his style into here. He has tracks that focus a lot more on just hard leads, and the tracks are a little bit more open. So I try to kind of incorporate a little bit of both in this one. So let me know what you guys think. Without further talking, let's jump into the next section and get started on this beat. So one thing that I want to kind of share with you guys is the whole Made in Tokyo type sound. It also, or I guess the K-Swisher sound if you want to be kind of technical, but it also does the thing where sometimes it sounds a little bit kind of like a major chord, and then other parts it sounds minor, or a major scale I should say, and then in other parts it sounds minor, excuse me. The same thing I was kind of telling you guys about with Lil Uzi Vert. So the way to kind of achieve that, the easiest way is when you're choosing your scale, you want to choose a pure minor scale. So it doesn't really matter as far as like what you actually choose, but the pure minor scale will allow you to have, you know, kind of major and minor chords in there, and you can use them and still stay in scale, and it'll give you that kind of sound that they both use. So keep that in mind. Great scale to use in general. I like them just because you can bring interesting kind of melodies to minor scales, and then you can also switch to kind of just happier little sounds and whatnot. So I actually use pure minor a lot. So just a little tip, and you can find this at pianoworld.com, this little chart or whatever if you want to check it out. So just pick whatever. I ended up picking D sharp pure minor, so that's what we'll be creating the beat in. So I'll jump in the next section, get started on it. So the very first sound I'm going to be using is a little pluck sound called Cubism from EXO the Madness bank that we just dropped at studiosounds.com. Just a nice multi-purpose bank, so you can use it for a bunch of different projects. So we're gonna go ahead and set our BPM to 68. Lil Uzi Vert, just kind of depends on the track, but it's usually pretty slower as well. The drums and whatnot to kind of give it energy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here, and this is kind of, you guys will see kind of what I was talking about as far as the scales and whatnot, kind of how it comes into play here. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of lay in this little pattern, which is very simple. So this is what I had. And that just sounds like a typical kind of, you know, minor pattern. Like it doesn't really sound too melodic or anything like that. But since we're using pure minor, that lets us use this little C sharp over here as well. So when you put the little C sharp in here, it actually changes the vibe of this a lot. And it gives it that kind of feel where you have the minor type feel, but still a little bit more feel good. It's not so depressing. So here's what it sounds like now. I hope you guys kind of pick up on that. It just gives it a little bit of a different vibe, a little kind of more upbeat, a little bit happier, if you will. And it's basically just one note. So this is kind of the beauty of using the pure minor scale. So what we're going to do is just hit Control and B. And that's going to go ahead and copy this whole thing over. So this is where I started my whole track, just this little pattern. So Lil Uzi Vert, you're going to get a lot of different little pluck sounds, a lot of different, even like just instead of doing it with a pluck, you could do something like this with a nice little lead type sound as well. If you're looking for that Uzi Vert type sound. So this is what I started with. Let's jump to the next section, continue. So the next thing I'm going to add to this is the pluck Shiver Harp. Again, from the same EXO the Madness bank. When I'm doing kind of plucks and stuff, I always like to kind of stack different stuff with plucks. So whether it's a chord that I'm going to use a different pluck and do a chord with, or just kind of accentuate some notes, it's always kind of something I like. I just like the texture of having two plucks going at the same time and not playing the same exact thing usually, just so you kind of get that difference. And you know, one might sound a little bit softer, one might be a little bit rougher. So just something to keep in mind if you ever just have a cool little pluck pattern, whatever the case may be. Just using a different kind of pluck or something like that, and just making sure that you just basically copy whatever pattern you have down to your other pluck, and then just start taking out notes. That's basically all I'm going to do. Take these out, for example, and just leave something like this. And then once you stack them, you'll kind of see the difference between when the one sound hits and then when this kind of just accentuates different notes. You know, something like that, and I think that just sounds better, gives it a bigger sound, and that texture just makes it a little bit more interesting. And then another thing you can do, as far as what I was saying, as far as like stacking chords or whatever, you can find notes that you're using for a pluck, just kind of make it a little bit more complex. You know, we all know plucks and different patterns like this can sound a little bit kind of simple, true simplistic. So just to add like a simple little chord maybe or something like that, we're not going to use this in this track, but it's an easy way to just kind of add some little functionality to your actual arps and whatnot, and make them sound a little bit more interesting and a little bit more complex than they actually might be. So maybe you wanted to add like a little chord on the one. And you could obviously switch this up as well and do different you know, different kind of patterns and whatnot, different chords. But it just kind of depends on the sound. But yeah, so this is kind of what I had. I wanted to kind of highlight that little transition, then leave it over here. And by itself, the sound just kind of sounds like this. It's a little bit more aggressive and also has kind of like a, almost like a flutish type sound to it. So once I had this, I kind of started laying out my beat. Lately, I've kind of enjoyed, actually, I should say, just starting to lay out my beats as I'm kind of making them. So I kind of heard this and I was like, okay, that's a cool little intro. And this is also a cool way to not get stuck in beats. Sometimes we as producers, or at least I know I do myself, is like I'll start making a beat or whatever the case may be, and I'll do it all in pattern 1 or pattern 2, like just get everything in there, and then it comes down to like start breaking down the beat, and I really don't know where to take it. I'm just so used to hearing pattern 1. So this way, once I laid something down, okay, cool, this is a cool little intro, start sequencing right away, lay it in here, and then I'll just kind of start building as the beat goes. So if you're one of those people that kind of get stuck into, you know, I don't know what to take out, I don't know what to put in to, you know, differentiate stuff, start kind of breaking it down. Then also another thing is, a lot of people when they're doing like a hook or a verse section, they're starting to think of like, what can I add to it? But a lot of times it's kind of thinking of like, what can you take out, what can you subtract from it? So keep that in mind if you're ever stuck on a beat. What are the essentials of the beat? What can you keep? Sometimes even just breaking it down to bare drums is going to sound fine depending on, you know, what the beat sounds like and what the whole main idea is. It doesn't always have to be add, because sometimes you honestly can't add something more. The more you add to a verse, the more it kind of just throws off the hook or whatever the case may be. So just keep that in mind. Subtraction is also a great idea sometimes when you're making beats. But anyway, so this is basically what I started off with. This was going to be my little intro. So let's jump into the next section, continue. So once I had that little section down, I started to kind of think more about what the beat should be, or kind of what my end goal was. And the more I kind of think about it, is Lil Uzi Vert has a very nice melodic sound to his music. I think the whole melodic thing is kind of what makes him stand out. You know, a lot of the songs I listened to, I couldn't even tell what he was saying, honestly. But once I actually listened to the track, it was catchy, and the catchy part about it was the melodies. The kid has a great ear for melodies, and the awesome thing is that he finds these melodies in trap beats, which, you know, a lot of people don't do. So he's kind of giving you something that's familiar trap music and trap beats, but then he's also putting his own little twist on it. So to kind of achieve a little bit more of a melodic type sound in my track, you know, this by itself, it has a little bit of a kind of a melodic type quality to it, but it's not really going to cut it by itself. Let me just play it one more time for you guys. You know, it doesn't sound bad, but it's not really something that's just going to make somebody want to sing or do something like that over it. So I decided I was going to add some chords. Chords are obviously a great way to kind of fill out a track, and then also add more of a little bit of a melodic twist to it. So while I was kind of letting this play, I found this sound called PL Softy and the Mustard on the Bank set from www.studiosounds.com. It's called the PL Softy. It's kind of a pluck type sound, and I think somebody on the forum the other day was actually asking how to make a certain sound like this. So if you don't want to go through the process of what I told you to make it, you can pick up this bank. It has really similar sounds to kind of what you're asking about. But anyway, so once I had this, I kind of started just messing around with chords over the top of it, just kind of playing stuff and seeing what I could come up with. And the pattern I ended up coming up with was something along the lines of this. You know, it just had a much more kind of melodic type tone to it, and just kind of changed how it was. It kind of took it from a standard, you know, everyday type trap beat to something that has a little bit more of a melodic kind of tone to it. And as you can tell, it's basically just two chords repeating. So you have your D sharp, G sharp, B, repeat that 4 times, and then D sharp, F sharp, A sharp. And you just kind of repeat that over and over and over here. I just kind of messed up slightly, but yeah, so this is kind of what I started off with. And as I played these two together, it sounded good to me. You still had your kind of more trap vibe from this, but then this brought a nice little melodic element to just kind of tie everything together. So this is what it sounded like. Okay, so I had something like that. So as I was telling you guys, I was kind of sequencing stuff as I went with this beat. So once I heard that, I was like, maybe I could kind of just take this little section, run maybe like a low pass filter over here or something. So just go to the master channel. We're going to go ahead and choose a parametric EQ just so we can kind of adjust how we want it to sound. And we're going to run a little low pass filter. So as like an intro type sound. And then over here I figured, well, maybe I should just drop it into just these chords and then reintroduce this for when the beat drops. This is something you hear Travis Scott do a lot, so that was kind of where I got that idea from. But yeah, so this is kind of what I started off with. And as you can tell, that's a very awkward transition for right now. If you're like me, I'm one of those people that constantly, I kind of like to switch up my workflow. You know, once you've been making beats for so long, it kind of gets almost monotonous to kind of do the same thing over and over. So one thing that I like to do if I'm kind of stuck, I'm having a little bit of beat block or something, is I like to take sections that maybe don't sound like they should be, you know, like one after another, or just not smooth transitions, like for example this to this, and I start just kind of experimenting and finding ways to kind of tie it all in and make it actually sound pretty good. So if you're ever stuck or something, it's just kind of a fun way to do it and kind of make a beat just a little bit differently. You know, find sections that maybe don't fit as far as your transitions, and then just work on making them fit. It sounds weird, but please try it. I think you guys, if you're anything like me, I think you'll enjoy it. It's kind of just a fun way to do it. But yeah, so once I had this, I obviously realized, okay, this little transition into here is not that smooth. So I started just kind of browsing sounds and finding what could make this kind of really work. So let's jump to the next section. I'll show you guys kind of how I started on this section and the elements I used to really kind of tie it all together.